Hey guys, STLYoungblood with you for a little bit more Battlefield 4 information. This time I wanted to talk about the maps and the game types and what they're calling LEvolution. But before we even get into that, I wanted to talk about the beta. So if you actually log into your Origin account and hover over the Battlefield 4 beta, it'll let you know a preload time if you're on PC and an available time. Now this actually just came available, so you can tell for me personally, in Central Standard Time, the beta is going to be available October 1st at 3 a.m. I'd encourage you guys to go and check it out so you can be in there as soon as you possibly can. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into some of the content. Now, when we're talking about the game modes, there is some standards that we've seen before, and then there's a couple new ones that I'm going to talk to. So I'm going to go ahead and run through these and give a little bit of a background on each of them. Now, the first game type is obviously going to be Conquest, and this is really the standard Battlefield mode. So I'm not going to hit on this too much, as most of you probably already know about it. But there's multiple flags, and the more you hold, the faster your enemies' respawn tickets drop. So you own more flags, the game goes quicker in your favor. Vice versa, enemy holds more, your game's going to end a little bit quicker on the bad side of it. Conquest typically is going to involve lots of vehicles and chaos, big maps. You're going to see air as far as jets and choppers. You're going to see boats in the water. It's a little bit of everything. If you've never really played a Battlefield game before, this is Call of Duty's domination, but kind of on steroids. Rush is the other kind of quintessential quote-unquote Battlefield game type. There's two MCOM stations that are placed on a portion of the map. Now, the attackers are going to rush to it to plant a bomb, while the defenders are trying to ensure that that doesn't happen. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with the Battlefield series, it may sound a little bit like Search and Destroy from Call of Duty, but there's a couple main differences. Search and Destroy only really has one bomb, and the games are very, very fast. Whereas Rush lasts longer because after you've destroyed the first two objectives, which can take a long time, you move on to two more, and then two more, etc. So the other big difference is that everybody has a bomb. So as a defender, everyone's a threat to your objectives. Kind of along the same lines, Domination. This was introduced during the Close Quarters expansion, I believe, with Battlefield 3. Domination is like Conquest, where capturing flags is crucial and it's going to burn your enemy's tickets down. The last team with tickets remaining is the one that's going to win the game. Now, the difference is this doesn't have any vehicles. The maps are much more confined. Basically, it's going to have higher paced action, especially on PC where servers are adjusted to hold 48 or 64 people or some random number in between. Overloaded maps makes for real chaos. Now, there's two new game types that are actually being introduced. The first one's called Obliteration, and it's probably the one that I'm most excited for out of these. And it's, like I said, one of the new ones, so that adds to the excitement. In Obliteration, which is a pretty cool name, really, there's one bomb which spawns at some random place on the map. Everyone's going to have to fight to the bomb, and once they pick it up, they need to deliver it to one of the three objectives that are located somewhere on the map. Now, once that objective is destroyed, it starts all over again, with the new random bomb location meaning everybody's fighting towards it again. It sounds a little similar to Rush, but the primary difference is that you're going to be defending at one point and then moving to the offense at another moment. It's going to be back and forth. So the analogy that I can kind of come up with this for is think of standard Rush being like American football, where there's set attackers and defenders, and then Obliteration being more like soccer, or what the rest of the world calls football, where you're switching back and forth on a moment's notice. And then the other new type is going to be Diffuse. Like I said, this is the one that I probably understand the least about. Now, it's designed for competitive play in mind, so that means you're probably not going to see me playing much of it. That being said, it says that everyone has a single life, but they can be revived once. And that you're going to be working on either eliminating the enemy team or arming and detonating an objective. Now, does that mean you can either win by killing the whole enemy team or by just destroying an objective? Are there set attackers and defenders? Are there multiple rounds? I don't have a clue. But to me, it sounds a little bit like the Call of Duty classic Search and Destroy. And then to finish this off, we've got two other Team Deathmatch variants. Like I said, the first was Team Deathmatch. And a lot of people didn't really care for this game mode in Battlefield 3. So we'll have to see how people respond to it in Battlefield 4. I think the key to that is going to be map design, because in Battlefield 3, it felt like they just picked a section of the Conquest map that would apply best for Team Deathmatch. And that didn't always work out well. I've said before that I really enjoyed like No Shark Canals and Karg Island because they were super fast paced. But if you really think about it, they're probably not the best design for Team Deathmatch. So I mean, we'll have to just see how that plays out. I'm personally looking forward to seeing this Team Deathmatch in the game. So I'm not really surprised by its reappearance, but it's really straight up TDM modes. Everybody's familiar with that, so I'm not going to go into any more detail. The other deathmatch variant was Squad Deathmatch. And this game was just okay for me in Battlefield 3, mainly because you needed a pretty full component of, a full squad that knows what they're doing. Competency, that's the word I was looking for. You've got 4 teams of 4 that are fighting against each other in a standard team deathmatch format. Now, it looks like squads in Battlefield 3 are going to be 5 people instead of 4, so we're probably going to see 4 teams of 5. But the first team that gets to the designated number of kills wins. Now, in Battlefield 3, there was one vehicle that would spawn, and pretty much the first team, whoever got that vehicle, would always win. That's not very much fun for everyone else, especially if you're losing. So, it got to a point in Battlefield 3 where so many servers would actually prohibit the use of the vehicle and would kick people out if they didn't listen to the server admin because it broke gameplay. So, should we expect to see like an armored personnel carrier in this game mode? I hope not, but if it's going to be in there is yet to be seen. Alright, now before we start talking about the maps, I wanted to talk about LEvolution. And when I was first looking into this, and I first heard this term, I was thinking to myself, oh, so level cap has a game type. Which, yeah, I know, sounds stupid. So let's go ahead and move on. There's certain mechanics that are being built into the game that will encourage creative and thoughtful gameplay. Now, the first set of things are things that are user-triggered. So think about activating barricades in the road or dropping shutters in a room so you can try and reinforce it. Then there's things that are built into Frostbite, like destroying a walkway or a catwalk to make a ramp so you can access new areas. Mechanics and other things are also being built into the game, things like metal detectors and car alarms that are going to give away your position. You can kill the lights to a room, which is going to give you an advantage if you're using an IR or maybe a night vision scope. They also claim bigger events like weather or triggering massive events like crashing a naval vessel into the battlefield or bringing down towers, flooding entire cities, etc. Those types of things can also be user-triggered. Now, just looking at this, some of these sound awesome. Some of these also sound like they're going to be played out pretty quick. Now, let's go through a little mental exercise here. How many Conquest or Obliteration games would you expect to see people crashing a big-ass ship into the map if that's a possibility? Giving you a second to answer. My guess, all of them. It's just how people are. If you can crash a big-ass ship into a city, you're going to do it. So, things like car alarms and metal detectors are going to force people to play smarter and probably more intuitively. And I think that's a great change. I'm always a proponent of more ambient changes like weather as well. So I'm personally excited to see how that plays out. I like the ability for more user-controlled things as well, but I could also see being able to fortify yourself on a point without having a real good counter being really annoying. So hopefully things like rocket launchers or armor can get you through these, which is going to encourage team play. Another thing there I mentioned was creating new pathways, and that does sound cool. But my hunch tells me that these are going to be things that are very bland after a bit. If it's like you point your cursor at a certain point on the screen and you get a message stating something like shoot to lower the walkway or anything along those lines, that's why I think it might be boring. Now, if I'm wrong, that would be great. But if it's something that's programmed in, that's predetermined, that would be on the negative side. So if you can really get creative, and Frostbite 3 is going to allow you to do that, then I think it's going to be awesome. But, if it's down to predetermined locations and event timing, I could see it mostly being a novelty or something that's immediately used by everyone because they know it's an option. Basically, I guess the way I want to summarize this is, if I have to use my brain, I think it's great. But if it's watered down, it may provide some cool dynamics, but it wouldn't be the same as having to problem solve that situation in real time. Now, talking about the map specifically, there's several that we actually know about that are going to be released, and we know some more about others than some of them just because of what we've seen in trailers. Now, the one you've probably seen the most of is the Siege of Shanghai. Now, that's a Chinese metropolis, so expect lots of urban combat. That being said, we see helicopters, armor, boats, jet skis, etc., all in the trailer. So visually, this map seems to be beautiful, so I want to get in there as soon as I possibly can. We've seen trailers of the skyscraper falling, which is pretty cool, but is that something that's going to be triggered like LEvolution has talked about, or is that just something like an in-game event like we've seen on Caspian Border with the radio tower? I'm not sure. Paracel Storm is probably the other one that we've seen the most of. It's the one that has the crazy seas with lots of weather. Think about the big ship in the ocean. The U.S. team starts in the ocean, charging the islands from boats. Once you make landfall, you're going to see a tropical island chain where there's lots of little places to hop and skip around from. Now, there's going to be points on different islands, which means using boats will help with your attack. There's also going to be a point that's actually on an aircraft carrier out at sea. So you've probably seen footage of the giant wind turbine thing crashing to the ground. This is the map that's also going to have the ship crashing right into the middle of the action. So you're going to see wood bridges like you do on like we've seen before. You're going to be able to destroy those. They're currently lengthy islands a little bit. But basically, if you destroy that means you're either going to need to have a boat or you're going to need to get your swim on. It looks pretty similar from what I've seen so far to Wake Island. So if you're familiar with that, it may give you an idea of what to expect on Paracel Storm. Zavad 311. Now, this was a Soviet tank factory from the Cold War, so it's been abandoned, and nature's really taken its course on the facility, meaning that there's going to be lots of vegetation and trees growing all over it. Speaking of LEvolution, I think that term's going to get annoying. There's a big warhead at the center of the facility that apparently you can detonate, and by doing so, it's going to bring down a smokestack onto the entire environment. That's going to reveal some new pathways by breaking down walls and probably creating ramps. It's also going to block off other access areas. This is also going to mean that probably driving a vehicle around this facility is going to suck. So, apparently there's going to be a lot of things that go boom on this map, just munitions laying around. And that's going to mean that you should enjoy being able to blow stuff up and probably being able to use that to your advantage. We've got Lansang Dam. I'm not familiar with Chinese. Focused around a big dam in China. Shocking. The title's appropriate. This is going to feature a lot of vehicle gameplay. You're also going to see infantry and air combat. There is open water, so expect to see boats being used to some extent. And in Conquest, there's going to be 5 points that are spread around the dam, but they're all located on land. Flood Zone, this is one where there's a destroyable levee on this map, meaning that this is going to be the map where you can flood the entire city. Yeah, I know, the title kind of gave that away. When that happens, expect naval combat to be entering into the city, which is going to include probably small attack boats and jet skis. So the game's going to start with armor being the primary focus, and it's going to move from that over to, I guess we can call it LEvolving, into fast attack boats and being the primary threat. Now, how much of this can you do on foot without having to swim? I sure hope a lot, because swimming's annoying, but I don't really know. Rogue Transmission is a map that takes place around a big satellite dish. Now, this map kind of reminds me of GoldenEye, which is pretty exciting. So if you remember that scene where James Bond goes to Cuba and there's that big-ass satellite dish, boom! This is that map that's going to let you pretend to get your James Bond on. Now, granted, it's in China, but whatever. Now, you're going to be able to fight on top of the dish and below it. It's going to feature both choppers, armor, and infantry combat. I think this map looks like it's going to be pretty big. Moving over to Hainan Resort, takes place at a local resort, so another appropriately titled map. Tropical Island, which is mostly going to have infantry combat, but it's going to include some boats. The concept art shows a burning vessel, so outside of just creating an ambient environment of smoke, I would kind of expect it to play a bigger part than just scenery, so maybe there's a point out there. Dawnbreaker. I think this title refers to the game starting at night and moving into sunlight, so you're probably going to see an environment change. So maybe you want a night vision scope at the beginning, but by the end you're wanting a red dot. I don't know, but it's taking place in an urban environment. We don't really know much about the map yet, but personally, I would expect to see armored personnel carriers be the primary threat and the primary thing that you want to get into as soon as possible. Operation Locker is a map that's set at a prison and has been said to look a lot like Operation Metro. I guess the main difference with that is that the prison is on top of a mountain and it's probably built into it. Jail cells seem to indicate that we'll probably see, again, LEvolution here, controlled by the user, which probably means that you're going to be able to force the cell doors closed, and maybe even trap players into certain parts of the map. I would guess that this is probably going to be exclusively infantry, with maybe some close chopper support on the surface. And then the last one's probably the most prototypical Battlefield map, and that's the Goldmood Railway. It's a big-ass map. It's supposed to be pretty similar to the Armored Kill maps from Battlefield 3. It's set up next to a railway, and where we're going to see a lot of tanks and choppers and jets, etc. Expect to see capture points spread all over the map. So, with that in mind, and knowing that it's big, you better be smart with your spawns, or be ready to get into a vehicle, because if not, you better hope you've been marathon training, because you're going to be running a long way. Alright guys, so that's it for now. Hopefully you guys are going to be seeing some more content as soon as the beta is released, and I'll keep you updated as more information surfaces. Again, if you like this video, please give it a like and a thumbs up, and subscribe if you haven't yet, and stay tuned for more. So I will talk to you guys later. Take care.